The evening air carried a strange silence. The city lights glowed outside Ana de Armas's window, but she could not find comfort in them. She sat alone on the couch, her hands trembling slightly as she tried to calm her restless thoughts. On the surface, everything in her life seemed perfect. She was a successful actress, admired by millions. Yet inside, she felt a deep emptiness. There are moments in life when the weight of expectations and the noise of the world become too heavy, and that night, Ana was lost in that silence. She did not tell many people about her feelings. Fame had given her recognition, but had also taken away her right to weakness. When people looked at her, they saw beauty, success, and strength. What they never asked was how she carried her pain when the cameras stopped flashing. That night, she held her phone in her hand, staring at one name, unsure if she should call. Keanu Reeves. Their bond had grown over the years, not just as co-stars, but as human beings who shared kindness and respect. Ana admired Keanu's calmness, the way he carried himself with humility despite his legendary status. She hesitated, her thumb hovering over the screen, afraid to disturb him. But something in her heart told her he would understand. When Keanu picked up, his voice was gentle, filled with the same warmth he always carried. "Ana, what's wrong?" he asked softly, as if he could already hear her pain in the silence. For a moment she couldn't speak. Her throat tightened, and her eyes filled with tears. Finally she whispered, "I don't feel good tonight. I don't even know why. I just feel lost." Keanu didn't rush her. He didn't tell her to be strong or to get over it. Instead, he listened. He stayed quiet long enough for her to feel safe. And then he said, "You don't have to explain everything. Sometimes not feeling good is enough reason to need someone." Those words struck her deeply. No one had said that to her before. Most people wanted explanations, but Keanu offered her peace instead. "Stay where you are," he told her. "I'll come." Ana tried to stop him. She didn't want to be a burden. But before she could argue, he had already ended the call. Within the hour, he was at her door. When she opened it, he carried no judgment, no questions, only a calm presence that immediately filled the room with warmth. He brought with him something more powerful than advice. He brought stillness. They sat together in the living room. Ana looked fragile, her eyes red, but Keanu did not make her feel weak. He poured her a glass of water and simply sat down beside her. He didn't try to entertain her or distract her with jokes. Instead, he offered his silence. A silence that wasn't empty, but full of care. Ana finally spoke. "Sometimes I feel like I'm surrounded by people, but I'm still alone. I smile for everyone, but when I'm by myself, the smile disappears. I feel guilty for not being happy when I have so much." Her voice cracked and tears rolled down her cheeks. Keanu leaned forward slightly, his eyes calm but full of sincerity. "Happiness isn't a debt you owe to the world," he said. "You're allowed to feel what you feel. You don't have to smile just because people expect you to. Peace doesn't come from pretending. It comes from being honest with yourself." Those words made Ana's heart tremble. She realized he wasn't trying to fix her. He wasn't promising that everything would suddenly become easy. He was simply reminding her that she was human, that her feelings were real and deserved space. The night stretched on, and the room grew quieter. Ana leaned back on the couch, her breathing slowly calming. Keanu stayed beside her, not as a star, not as a mentor, but as a friend who offered his presence. Every time she looked at him, she saw no judgment, only respect. As the clock moved past midnight, something shifted inside Ana. For the first time in weeks, she felt the tension in her chest begin to loosen. She whispered softly, almost to herself, "You always know how to bring peace." Keanu gave a small smile, not proud, not dramatic, just sincere. "Peace isn't something I bring. It's something you already have inside you. Sometimes you just need someone to remind you of it. That line stayed with her, and in that moment, Anna realized something important. True kindness isn't loud. It isn't about grand gestures. Sometimes it's found in the quiet presence of someone who listens, someone who cares, without asking for anything in return. As she closed her eyes that night, she felt safe, not because her problems had disappeared, but because she knew she wasn't facing them alone. And for Ana de Armas, that was the peace she had been searching for. The next morning came with a heavy sky. Soft gray clouds covered the sun, as if the world itself understood the weight on Anna's heart. She woke up on the couch where she had fallen asleep. A blanket was gently placed over her shoulders. For a moment she thought it was a dream, but when she looked up, Keanu was still there, quietly sitting in a chair, his head tilted back, resting, his eyes half closed. He hadn't left. He had stayed the entire night. Anna's throat tightened as she watched him. In Hollywood, loyalty was rare. People came and went, friendships often built on convenience or spotlight. Yet here was Keanu, someone who didn't need to stay, but chose to. He hadn't spoken much, yet his silence had been louder than any words. She whispered softly, "You didn't have to stay." Keanu opened his eyes, his calm expression unchanged. "I know," he said gently, "but sometimes the hardest part of pain is waking up alone. I didn't want you to face that today." His words hit her deeply. For so long, Anna had faced mornings pretending to be strong, painting her face with smiles for the world. But this morning felt different. Someone saw her without the mask, and, instead of turning away, he stayed. Still, the quietness of her heart had not fully healed. As they shared breakfast, her emotions lingered close to the surface. She tried to smile, but Keanu noticed the hesitation in her eyes. "There's more, isn't there?" he asked gently. Anna froze. She wanted to deny it, to brush it away, but Keanu's voice had no demand in it, only concern. Tears formed in her eyes again. "I feel like I'm breaking inside," she admitted. "I keep moving, I keep working, but deep down, I'm exhausted. And I don't know how to tell people because they see me as strong. They see me as someone who has it all." Keanu listened quietly. Then, after a pause, he said something that caught her off guard. "Strength isn't about holding it together all the time. Sometimes strength is letting yourself fall apart in front of someone you trust." Those words made her chest ache. No one had told her that before. She had spent years believing strength meant silence, hiding pain, and always being composed. But in that moment, she felt the strange relief of being allowed to be fragile. Yet beneath the comfort, a storm was rising. Because deep inside, Anna carried a secret she had not shared with anyone. A fear she had buried for months. She wondered if she should tell him. She wondered if he could handle the truth of why her nights had become sleepless. Before she could. "Speak!" The doorbell rang. The sharp sound echoed in the quiet room, startling her. She quickly wiped her eyes. Keanu stood up, his calm presence steady, and walked to the door. When he opened it, a delivery man handed over a small package. Anna frowned. She hadn't ordered anything. Her name was written across the box, yet there was no return address. She hesitated, her heart suddenly uneasy. Keanu placed the box on the table. "Do you want to open it?" he asked. Anna's hands shook slightly as she tore the seal. Inside was a stack of letters, neatly tied together with a black ribbon. The sight of them drained the color from her face. "What is it?" Keanu asked, sensing her fear. Anna didn't. "Answer immediately." She picked up one of the letters, her fingers trembling. When she unfolded it, her eyes scanned the words, and her breath caught. Keanu noticed her chest rise and fall quickly, panic spreading across her face. She whispered, "These are from someone I've been trying to forget." Keanu leaned forward, his expression serious but calm. "What do they say?" Anna looked away, tears blurring her vision. "They're reminders of things I don't want to relive. Someone who hurt me. Someone who makes me doubt myself even when I try to move on. I thought it was over. I thought I left it behind. But now—" Her voice broke. Keanu gently placed a hand on the table, steady and reassuring. "You don't have to face this alone anymore." But Anna shook her head, her fear tightening her chest. "Keanu, you don't understand. These words, they have power over me. Even when I try to forget, they drag me back. It's like a shadow that follows me everywhere." For a moment, silence filled the room again. But this silence was different, heavier, more dangerous. Keanu's calm eyes stayed on her. "Then maybe it's time the shadow meets the light." His words startled her. She had expected pity, maybe advice to throw the letters away. But instead, he spoke of facing it, of standing against the storm instead of running from it. Anna's hands gripped the table, torn between fear and hope. She wanted to believe she could confront the past, but she had carried it alone for so long that the thought of sharing it terrified her. Still, the presence of Keanu made her feel something she hadn't felt in years: courage. The day passed slowly, each moment heavy, with unspoken words. Keanu didn't push her, but he stayed close, his silence giving her the strength to breathe. That night, as the city lights shimmered again outside her window, Anna finally broke the silence. "Keanu," she whispered, "what if my past ruins everything? What if the pain never leaves me?" He looked at her with the same steady calmness he always carried. "Pain changes us, but it doesn't have to destroy us. Sometimes the most broken pieces create the strongest souls." Those words lingered in the room, soft but powerful. Anna lowered her head, her tears falling silently. For the first time, she felt the weight of her secret loosening, as if the chains around her heart had started to crack. The letters still sat on the table, a silent reminder of shadows. But beside her sat Keanu Reeves, a man whose quiet strength promised that she wouldn't face them alone. And in that fragile moment, she realized something. Peace wasn't always about escaping pain. Sometimes peace was about having someone sit beside you while you faced it. The unopened letters lay like silent ghosts on the table, their presence heavy in the dim light of Anna's living room. She sat across from them, her body tense, her fingers nervously twisting the edge of her sleeve. Keanu watched her quietly, giving her space, his calm expression steady, as if he was waiting for her to decide when she was ready. The night outside was restless. A light drizzle tapped against the window, making the room feel even more enclosed, as though the world wanted her to face what she had avoided for so long. Anna finally whispered, almost to herself, "These letters, they are not just words, they are chains. Every time I read them, I feel smaller, weaker, like my voice doesn't matter." Her hands trembled as she touched the stack again, her heart pounding with fear. Keanu leaned forward slightly, his tone low but filled with strength. "Sometimes the chains are strongest when we leave them untouched, but when we face them, when we see them for what they are, they lose their power." Anna's eyes lifted, searching his face for reassurance. She had seen him in movies as a man of resilience, but now she was seeing the real person, the quiet strength that didn't come from scripts or fame, but from the way he understood human pain. Her chest rose and fell quickly as she pulled the ribbon away. The letters unfolded one by one, their paper worn and slightly yellowed. She picked the first one, her fingers stiff as if she was holding something poisonous. As she began to read aloud, her voice cracked. "Anna, you will never be enough. No matter how much the world praises you, you will always be a shadow of what they expect." Her throat closed. She stopped reading, her eyes wet with tears. Keanu's jaw tightened slightly, but he said nothing. Instead, he let her feel the moment, not rushing her, not interrupting her. Anna's hands shook more as she continued with another letter. You smile on screens, but you know it's not real. Deep down you are fragile, and fragile people don't last. People will leave you when they see the truth. Her breath came out uneven, almost breaking into sobs. She dropped the letter on the table, her voice trembling. This is what I've carried. Every time I try to move forward, these words echo in my head. I hear them when I wake up, when I work, when I'm alone. They don't just remind me of him. They remind me of the voice inside me that agrees. The room fell into a thick silence. The rain outside grew heavier, the rhythm against the glass almost like a drumbeat of her pain. Keanu finally spoke, his voice steady. Anna, do you know what I see when I look at you? I don't see weakness. I see someone who has carried this pain and still kept moving. That isn't fragile. That is strength. Anyone can smile when life is easy, but to smile when you're breaking inside, to keep going when every letter tries to tear you down, that's resilience. His words broke through the fog of her fear, but the tears kept falling. Then why do I feel like I'm losing? She asked, her voice small, broken. Keanu leaned closer, his eyes gentle but firm. Because you've been fighting alone. Battles like this are not meant to be faced in silence. Sometimes the bravest thing is to let someone stand beside you. Anna's lips trembled as she looked at him. No one had ever said that to her before. People told her to be strong, to be independent, to never show weakness. But here was Keanu, telling her it was brave to lean on someone. Her heart pounded with a mixture of fear and relief. The fear came from opening wounds she had kept hidden for so long. The relief came from the presence of someone who didn't turn away. Suddenly, a memory flashed before her eyes. A night from years ago when the same person who wrote those letters had stood in front of her, criticizing her until she felt like nothing. His words had been sharp, his tone cold, and she had walked away believing she deserved the pain. She whispered, almost like a confession. He made me believe I was worthless. He made me believe that no matter what I did, I would never be enough. And I carried that belief into everything. Every role, every smile, every interview. I thought if the world loved me, maybe I could forget. But at night I always remembered. Her body shook as she spoke. Keanu reached out, gently placing his hand near hers on the table, not touching, but close enough for her to feel the warmth. Anna, he said softly, the world's love is not a replacement for your own. You are not defined by his words, and you don't have to carry his voice inside you anymore. Anna's tears fell faster. She closed her eyes, and for the first time, she didn't feel ashamed of them. Instead, she felt as if every tear was releasing a piece of the pain she had buried. Keanu stayed still, his presence calm and unwavering. There was no pity in his eyes, only respect. Respect for her courage, for her honesty, for the fight she had carried silently for so long. The storm outside grew stronger, thunder rolling in the distance. It was as if the world mirrored the storm inside her. But this time, she was not alone in the storm. Anna whispered, almost breaking, "How do I move on when the past is still inside me?" Keanu's voice was steady, filled with quiet strength. You don't erase the past. You learn to stand taller because of it. Pain doesn't leave us clean, it leaves us with scars. But scars are proof that we survived. They are not signs of weakness, but reminders of battles we won. Her breathing slowed as those words sank in. She looked at the letters again, but for the first time they seemed less powerful. They were still there, still sharp, but somehow smaller in the shadow of Keanu's words. The night deepened, the storm raged, but inside the small room, a quiet transformation began. Anna felt her heart ache, but beneath the ache was a flicker of something she thought she had lost. Hope. She looked at Keanu, her voice trembling but sincere. You always know how to say the right thing. But why? Why do you care so much? Keanu's eyes softened, his tone quiet. Because I know what it feels like to be broken. And because kindness is not about fixing someone. It's about standing beside them until they remember their own strength. Those words carved deep into her soul. She realized that what he was offering was not a solution, not a cure, but something greater. Companionship in her pain. Anna leaned back, her body exhausted, from the weight of confession, but her heart lighter than it had been in years. The letters still sat on the table, but now they were no longer shadows swallowing her whole. They were only paper, and as the storm outside slowly began to fade, she realized that maybe, just maybe, she was ready to face the world again. Not because her pain was gone, but because someone had reminded her she didn't have to face it alone. The storm had cleared by morning. Sunlight slipped through the curtains, painting the living room with soft gold. Yet despite the calm outside, Anna's heart felt restless. The letters still sat on the table, though now bound in a simple white envelope Keanu had placed them in. He didn't throw them away, not yet. He believed that sometimes closure wasn't found in running, but in facing what had once broken you. Anna stirred her coffee slowly, her eyes distant. What if facing it makes me weaker? She asked softly. Keanu leaned back, his voice calm, steady like water flowing over stones. Weakness isn't in facing pain. Weakness is pretending it doesn't exist. Every scar you reveal is proof of the war you survived. His words stayed with her, echoing in her thoughts long after he had spoken them. But peace is rarely left unchallenged. And that day, as if fate itself wanted to test her, the past came knocking, literally. A knock echoed at the door. It wasn't the polite kind. It was firm, sharp, demanding. Anna froze, her coffee cup trembling slightly in her hands. Her eyes flicked toward the door, dread filling them. Keanu noticed. Do you know who that is? Her lips pressed together, and her silence was the answer. The knock came again, louder this time. Then a voice. Deep, cold, familiar. Anna, I know you're there. Open the door. Her heart raced. She hadn't heard that voice in months, but it was one she could never forget. The writer of the letters, the man whose words had haunted her nights and stolen her confidence. Keanu stood slowly, his expression firm, his eyes watchful. He placed a hand gently on Anna's shoulder. You don't have to open it. Not unless you want to. Anna shook her head quickly, fear flooding her veins. But the voice on the other side grew sharper. You think you can ignore me? After everything? You owe me answers. Her breath caught. Every word felt like a chain wrapping around her chest. Her eyes filled with tears as memories began crashing back. She remembered one night years ago. Standing in a hallway lit by dim bulbs, that same man in front of her, his voice cutting into her like knives. You'll never be enough. No one will stay with you. People will see the truth, and they'll walk away. She had walked away in tears, yet those words had stayed, lodging themselves in her soul. She whispered now, trembling. It's him, the one who wrote the letters. Keanu's jaw tightened, his calm composure unshaken. You don't owe him anything, he said firmly. You don't owe anyone the right to hurt you. But before Anna could respond, the door handle rattled, as if the man was testing it. Panic surged in her chest. Keanu stepped forward, his body shielding her from the door. Stay behind me, he said softly. Anna clutched her hands together, her breathing uneven. She had never confronted him. Never had the courage to say out loud what he had done to her spirit. And now, fate had dragged him to her doorstep. The voice called again, colder this time. "Anna, don't hide. You can't hide forever." Tears slipped down her cheeks. She whispered, almost pleading, "Keanu, what if he's right? What if I can't escape him?" Keanu turned his head slightly, meeting her eyes. His voice was calm but carried a quiet power. "He isn't truth, Anna. He's only noise. And the only way noise wins is if you let it drown your voice. You are more than his words." His strength steadied her trembling heart. Yet, the knock grew louder, the voice more impatient. Anna's chest tightened. "I can't face him. Not alone." Keanu gave a small nod. "Then don't. I'm here." His words were simple, but they carried a promise that shook something deep inside her. For a moment, silence fell on the other side of the door. Then the voice came again, lower, almost mocking. "You let someone else fight your battles now, Anna? Is that who you've become?" Those words hit hard, almost breaking her resolve. Her knees felt weak. But then Keanu's voice cut through the poison. "He wants you to believe you're weak, because that's the only way he keeps his power. But look at you. You're standing here. That's strength." Anna closed her eyes. Her chest heaved, her tears fresh. And then something unexpected stirred inside her. It wasn't anger. It wasn't hate. It was defiance. Slowly, with shaky steps, she moved closer to the door. Keanu stayed by her side, his presence steady like a shield. She placed her hand on the door, her fingers trembling, her heart racing. "No," she whispered, more to herself than to him. "I'm not hiding anymore." She opened the door just slightly, enough to face the man who had haunted her. His eyes met hers, sharp, filled with the same coldness she remembered. But this time, something was different. This time she wasn't alone. Keanu stood right beside her, his calm gaze never leaving hers. The man smirked, his words dripping with poison. "Look at you, still fragile, still needing someone else to protect you." Anna's lips trembled. Fear threatened to swallow her. But then she remembered Keanu's words. "Sometimes the bravest thing is letting someone stand beside you." She took a shaky breath and spoke, her voice soft but steady. "No, I'm not fragile. I'm human. And I don't need your voice in my life anymore." The man's expression faltered slightly, his smirk fading. Anna's knees shook, but she held her ground. Keanu placed a hand gently on her back, silent but steady. For the first time, she had spoken against the shadow that haunted her, and though her body trembled, her soul felt something new. Release. The man stared for a moment, his eyes narrowing, but something in her defiance unsettled him. Without another word, he turned and walked away, his footsteps fading into the distance. Anna stood frozen, her breathing heavy, her body trembling. The door was still open, but the darkness outside no longer felt as threatening. She turned to Keanu, tears streaming down her face. "I did it," she whispered. "I actually faced him." Keanu's lips curved into the faintest smile. "You didn't just face him, you defeated him. Not by shouting, not by hate, but by refusing to let his words own you anymore." Anna's tears flowed freely, but this time they weren't only from pain. They were from relief, from the weight finally lifting, from the strength she hadn't believed she had. She collapsed onto the couch, exhausted, her body shaking with release. Keanu sat beside her, his presence steady, his silence filled with respect. And in that fragile, victorious moment, Anna realized something powerful. Her past didn't vanish when the man walked away, but its grip on her spirit had broken. The night after the confrontation felt different. Anna lay awake in her bed, staring at the ceiling, her heart heavy yet strangely light. She had faced the man who haunted her. She had spoken words she never thought she could. But healing is not instant. Pain doesn't vanish with one act of courage. It lingers, testing the soul. She turned on her side and saw her phone glowing softly on the nightstand. One new message. It was from Keanu. "Still awake? Just checking if you're okay?" A soft smile touched her lips. He hadn't left her even when the night ended. She typed back slowly. "I'm awake. I don't feel fine, but I feel lighter." A moment later, his reply appeared. "Lighter is a start. Peace takes time, but you're on the path now." Anna stared at the message, her chest warming. She realized then that his words were like anchors, keeping her steady when the waves threatened to pull her under. The next morning, Keanu arrived at her door again. He didn't call ahead, but somehow she wasn't surprised. He carried a small paper bag in his hands. "Breakfast," he said simply, with a calm smile. Anna's laughter slipped out, soft but real. "You really don't give me space to hide, do you?" "Not when hiding hurts you," he replied. They ate together, the sunlight filling the kitchen. For the first time in a long while, Anna felt something ordinary. Comfort in the small things. The taste of warm bread, the sound of a calm voice, the feeling of safety. But as the day went on, the weight of her emotions returned. She sat on the balcony staring at the horizon, while Keanu quietly joined her. "What scares me most," she said, "is not just the past, but the future. What if I fall again? What if I lose everything I've fought for?" Keanu looked at her, his expression thoughtful. "Falling isn't failure, Anna. Falling is human. Failure is refusing to rise again. And from what I see, you've always risen, no matter how broken you felt." She turned to him, her eyes shining with tears. "But what if I can't do it alone anymore?" His gaze softened. "Then don't." Those two words shook her more than she expected. They carried a weight she wasn't prepared for, not because of weakness, but because of what they revealed. She didn't have to carry her life alone anymore. A long silence followed. But this silence wasn't heavy like before. It was filled with something unspoken, a bond that didn't need words, yet fate wasn't done testing her. A phone call came that evening. Her manager's voice was sharp, hurried. "Anna, there are rumors spreading. Someone's been talking to the press about your past. They're saying things that could damage your reputation." Anna's stomach dropped. "Rumors? About what? About you being fragile, unstable? About someone from your past trying to discredit you?" Her breath caught. She knew instantly who it was, the man she had faced yesterday. He hadn't stopped. He had found another way to wound her. Fear surged back, sharper than before. What if the world believes him? What if everything I worked for falls apart? Her hands shook as she hung up, panic rising. Keanu, who had been sitting nearby, noticed the change in her face. "What happened?" he asked. Her voice broke. "He's trying to destroy me. He's telling the world I'm weak. If they believe him, I'll lose everything." Keanu's calm expression shifted slightly, a flicker of steel in his eyes. Then, "Let them hear the truth from you, not from him." Anna shook her head violently. "I can't. If I speak, they'll see my cracks. They'll see how broken I am." Keanu leaned closer, his voice low but filled with certainty. "No, Anna. They won't see brokenness. They'll see courage. The world doesn't connect with perfection. It connects with truth. Your story, your scars, they don't make you less. They make you real." His words hit her hard. She wanted to believe them, but doubt still clawed at her. "But what if I'm not strong enough?" Keanu's voice softened, almost a whisper. "Then I'll stand beside you until you are." Anna's eyes filled with tears again, but this time not from despair. It was the overwhelming realization that she wasn't alone in this fight anymore. That night, she sat in front of her mirror, staring at her reflection. She saw the tiredness in her eyes, the scars of her past still written in her expression. But for the first time, she also saw resilience staring back. Keanu stood in the doorway, silent but present. "You don't have to be perfect tomorrow," he said gently. "You only have to be honest." Anna turned, her voice trembling. "What if honesty breaks me in front of the world?" Keanu gave the faintest smile. "Sometimes breaking in front of the world is the bravest way to show them you're still standing." His words became a spark in her chest. And as the night deepened, Anna began to write, not letters of pain, but words of her own truth, her story, her struggles, her survival. She wrote through the night, her tears falling freely, but each word she put down felt like a step toward freedom. Keanu sat nearby, never once leaving, his silence filled with respect. By morning, her hands ached from writing, but her heart felt lighter than it had in years. She looked at the pages before her, pages filled with her truth. She whispered, almost in disbelief, "Maybe this is how I finally heal." Keanu nodded slowly. "Healing doesn't mean the scars disappear. It means you learn to live with them and still shine." Anna's lips curved into a faint smile, her eyes red but bright. For the first time, she felt ready, not just to face the world, but to trust it with her truth. And deep inside, though unspoken, she knew one thing. None of this would have been possible without the quiet, unshakable presence of the man who gave her peace when she had none. The morning of the press event arrived with a heavy stillness. Anna stood before the mirror, her reflection trembling back at her. The weight of her decision pressed on her chest. Today, she would speak her truth to the world, not through rumors, not through shadows, but in her own voice. Her heart pounded as she adjusted her simple black dress. Her eyes were tired from nights of writing, but inside them burned a fragile fire. Keanu stood nearby, leaning against the doorway, his presence calm as always. "Are you ready?" he asked softly. Anna let out a shaky breath. "No, but I'm going to do it anyway." Keanu's lips curved into the faintest smile. "That's what courage is." The drive to the venue was silent, except for the hum of the engine. Outside, the city moved in its usual rhythm, unaware of the storm inside her heart. Cameras flashed as they arrived. Reporters gathered, their voices sharp, questions flying through the air like arrows. "Anna? Is it true? Are the rumors real? Are you too fragile for Hollywood?" Each word cut, but she kept moving. Keanu's steady presence beside her grounding her with every step. Inside the hall, the stage was set. A row of microphones waited, the weight of countless eyes ready to judge. Anna's hands trembled as she stood behind the podium. For a moment, the noise of the crowd overwhelmed her, threatening to drown her. Then she looked to the side. Keanu stood there, his eyes calm, his presence unshaken. And in that moment, she remembered his words. "Peace isn't something I bring. It's something you already have inside you." She placed her trembling hands on the podium and leaned forward. Her voice cracked at first, but then it grew steady. "I know there are rumors about me," she began, her tone raw. "They say I'm fragile, they say I'm weak, and maybe there's truth in that. I've struggled. I've faced words that tried to break me. I've carried pain that I didn't know how to share. For a long time, I thought silence was strength. But silence only made me smaller." The room grew still, every camera lens locked onto her. "Yes, I've been fragile," she continued, her voice trembling but strong. "But fragile doesn't mean broken. Fragile means human, and being human means falling, hurting, doubting, but also rising, healing, and fighting. I'm not ashamed of my scars anymore. They are proof I survived." Her words echoed through the hall. The silence that followed was deafening. For a heartbeat, she feared rejection. Then, slowly, applause began. One clap, then another. until the hall filled with the sound of hands meeting, of people standing, of strangers honoring her. Courage. Tears welled in her eyes as the sound washed over her. She turned slightly, her gaze finding Keanu. He didn't clap. He simply gave her a small nod, his eyes shining with quiet pride. It was all the approval she needed. Later, when the hall emptied and the noise faded, Anna sat alone in the dressing room, her body shaking with the release of it all. Keanu entered quietly, holding 2 cups of water. He set one down beside her and sat in the chair across from her. "You did it," he said softly. Anna laughed weakly, her tears flowing again. "I thought my voice would break." "It did," he replied gently. "And that's why they believed you. Truth isn't perfect. It's raw. And raw is what people remember." Anna covered her face with her hands, overwhelmed. "I was so scared." Keanu leaned forward, his voice calm but firm. "Courage isn't the absence of fear, Anna. It's doing it while being scared." She dropped her hands and looked at him, her eyes wet but brighter than before. "I couldn't have done it without you." He shook his head lightly. "You could have. But I'm glad you didn't have to." Silence filled the room again, but this silence was no longer heavy. It was soft, almost sacred. As they left the building together, the evening sky was painted with warm hues of orange and pink. The storm that had once consumed her heart had passed. The man from her past was gone, his words reduced to whispers. That no longer had power. And beside her walked Keanu Reeves, the man who hadn't fixed her pain, but had given her peace. Anna breathed deeply, the air fresh, her chest lighter than it had been in years. She knew her journey wasn't over. Healing would take time. But she also knew she wasn't walking it alone anymore. As they disappeared into the quiet streets, one truth remained clear. Sometimes the greatest gift isn't someone who takes your pain away, but someone who stays beside you until you remember how to face it yourself.